You've got some.
All right, I want to mute us down real quick.
All right.
It's already been a week, but that yard is still looking bleak. And despite digging all the dirt you can fling, you still can't find the rhythm of spring. But that's okay, my dude.
Well, that went away, and I don't know what happened. So,
but that's okay.
It's the At Home Show.
Yes, it is. It is, and it is your Saturday morning tradition. We're here for you.
Did it just died? I mean, what?
I sent the whole file to Tyler. I said, Tyler, load it in here. This is on Tyler. I'm joking, man. I'm joking.
Everything's good, but it is time for the At-Home Show. We're a 0.9 miles.
I was really proud of
a wet Whites Creek
Did
fight.
it just cut off right there?
Yeah, it just cut off. Here, let's try it again.
Let's try it.
It's already been a week.
Yes, it
but
is.
that yard is still looking bleak. And despite digging all the dirt you can fling, you still can't find the rhythm of spring. But that's okay, my dude, because Josh and David can lift any mood. So instead of giving in to disillusionment, get ready for a heavy metal home improvement. Live from the Green Room Studios on the spacious property of Bates Nursery and Garden Center at 3810 Whites Creek Pike. It's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates.
Yeah, we know it's all about you, Josh.
No, stop. Okay. Alrighty, it is. That's much better.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what that music means. It's now time to climb a tree, don your loincloth, and survey the backyard because you got to find a project, a wet one today, and then lay it in the unmarked grave of history or just push it downstream. Hey, we're here for you. I am Josh Cary.
And I am David Bates.
Moose is to the left. Tyler's across the way. We've got special guests joining us today. So, hey, I did that rhyme just like you did in the intro.
I learned it from Eddie Stubbs.
Eddie Stubbs. Okay.
I'm assuming he did that at some point in his life.
It's the way to rhyme without it making it sound sing-songy.
Yes.
It's that fine line where that
it's a fine line of something.
It's that resonance.
Yeah.
And so.
Alrighty. Hey,
it's like a reverberation.
And not just Eddie Stubbs, the great Eddie Stubbs.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, folks. It is damp. It is the wind is blowing. It's ponding out there on the interstates. I've got a story about the trip in this morning here after you get done with the weather. But
see that picture right there?
Yep, all day.
That pretty much tells it. Mm-hmm. We're looking for wet weather today, and as you see, as we go through, let me see if I can get this thing in. I will just do this first. I'll do the severe overlay. This is for flash flooding and severe thunder morning, and you'll see that it pretty much, it's got a large swath of areas all out here across, well, the entire state of Tennessee, apparently.
Yes.
And so, but morning, and then we're going to have round 2 this afternoon. So we'll get on into the forecast here. Of course, today is Saturday. We're going to have some strong storms. We've already had them this morning. Maybe as much as 3 to 4 inches, all said, by the time it's all, and we've already had about 1.25 inches this morning.
I drove all the way up here to check the rain gauge for you.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
So, but it's going to be seasonably mild, 72 degrees, 54 for the overnight low. On Sunday, it's going to cool down quite a bit. Morning showers, but then it will dissipate for the high tomorrow, and the afternoon looks to be drier. 36 for the overnight low. So, for those who have been anxious to get those warm season annuals planted and got to get that garden done, this is why you should be patient.
Yes.
36 for the overnight low. That means outlying areas could see some scattered frost on Monday, 64, 44 for the low. Sunny conditions, partly cloudy on Tuesday, 72, 48. Showers on Wednesday, 52, 32. And then just in time for April Fools, 51, 29 on Thursday. So that means somebody's got a lot of work to do, including Bates Nursery. We've got those. We've got
the truckload of 800 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets that you're going to cover everything.
We have We don't have the 800 thread count, Josh, but we have other frost cloths that are suitable for the purpose.
Well, the homeowner has to use the 800 thread count Egyptian cotton.
Currently here in the Music City, it is 53 degrees here on the At Home Show.
All right, folks, it is dangerous out there on the interstates, and I will give you a warning. The wall gremlin on Interstate 24 is in full effect this morning.
That's where the big pond is on the inside.
Right there at Mill Creek. And
Gosh, it is terrible right there.
I witnessed the gremlin get somebody this morning on the way in just ahead of me, and if you're scooting along in that fast lane that's on 24, because it's the fastest of the fast lanes, because they're all fast lanes on Interstate 24.
Oh, yeah.
That area of Nashville is known that particular about 3/4 of a mile stretch, isn't it, David, is notorious for ponding right at the divider wall.
It is really bad.
And if you're in a little Prius or a little Honda View and you hit it at about 85 miles an hour, it's not pretty. It's not what happens.
You know you're going to hit it, is what you're saying.
I've known it. I'm in the second slowest of the fast lanes, but it hits you. It throws you across the interstate, just in front of the double-decker UPS truck.
Josh, I want to ask you something. Are you connected so that we can?
I'm connected to everything, David.
I want you to prepare by pulling up an email that I sent you earlier.
Okay.
Can you have that ready to go on the screen? I don't see you. I do not see you plugged in.
I am plugged in.
Oh, okay, I just didn't see it.
It doesn't mean.
But anyway, we've got this is I sent this email to Josh and one of our wonderful listeners and customer of Bates Nursery and Garden Center, Robert Qualls, sent out I think was a very pertinent email.
Pithy.
And why don't you just read that off to us, Josh?
A very good friend of his has finally settled into a nice detached house. A detached house. I mean,
but it's detached with love.
Yes, it is, and a good part of the in a good part of the Tusculum neighborhood. Shockingly, however, he recently informed me of an intent to purchase a Bradford pear. He is a genuinely decent person, so I have tried to dissuade him by telling him facts, such as their very brittle wood and the possibility that they were developed by the UT Agricultural School. He's a Vandy fan, by the way.
Yes.
And a season ticket holder, too. I also want to have a superior alternative.
Those are not sound effects, by the way, folks.
It's special effects is what it is.
That's what happens every time you talk about a Bradford pear.
And a Vandy fan and a Vandy fan at the same time. He also wants to have a superior alternative to suggest. What should he tell his friend without insulting his intelligence?
Well, I mean,
Bradford pears.
We don't have to go insulting on folks to be able to.
We will.
He's just clearly misguided somewhere along the way.
He's stupid.
He's not stupid.
He sure is.
He is malinformed, or he has an information deficiency.
Genetically defective, I would think.
Josh, come on, man. Maybe he doesn't know.
Huh?
Maybe he doesn't know.
This is what this venue is for right here, is to inform, to let this poor soul who is understandably,
he doesn't deserve to have plants in his yard.
Well, we're going to help him to get the right selection. Yeah. And Robert, for the benefit of your friend, and maybe that's air quotes.
Friend, yeah.
Maybe that's air quotes. Mm-hmm. If he's looking for a beautiful, blooming, spring flowering tree, a couple of things that come to mind right off is Yoshino cherry, or one of the cultivars, Mount Fuji. There's a lot of nice flowering cherries that
telephone pole would be better than a Bradford pear.
It certainly lasts longer. A dogwood, either a standard white dogwood. There's a number of other good white flowering dogwoods that are.
I wonder if there are any Bradford pears on the Vanderbilt campus.
I think not. There might have been at some point in time along the way.
They got smart.
Well, I mean,
that's a pretty good school.
I think we all have made that mistake way down the line. Most of us, I'd say. Right. If there was a period of time 30 years ago when it was it was the right thing to do.
No, it wasn't. Not
Well,
even
I
then.
mean, it seemed to be.
Okay.
But, a whole lot of other information came out since then.
Right.
And when they tried to improve the Bradford pear, they came out with some other cultivars
Right.
like the Red Select. And what they didn't realize is that these
we're still trash.
well, they wind up getting pollinated by the Bradford, which means that these seedlings get scattered to the hillside. And you drive through Williamson County right now, and you'll see that the hillside.
He's in Tusculum. He is. That's Brentwood Light, man.
You should be able to see it from there. So just don't plant them. And really, a major concentrated effort should be underway to rid.
Is that a
us
plant
of
you can
those.
get here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center?
No, we haven't sold it
Oh.
in almost 20 years.
You're a good guy.
Well, we try to do the right thing. There's a lot of things
You
that
joined the Bradford Pear Eradication Society about that same period of time.
I
David
did
Bates.
indeed. And despite the fact that there was much chagrin associated with our initially not selling those, a lot of people have come on board. Matter of fact, I would say most have come on board to realize that
Because what do they smell like, David?
awful. We'll just let it go at that. Awful.
Smell like
Close
butt.
enough. Well, they smell bad.
Yeah.
Dirty diaper?
It's a kind of smell that if your body smelled that way, you would try to do something about it.
Or you would hope someone would tell you about it.
Well, I think their body language would tell you if you're observing at all.
Social distancing?
Right. So, Todd, if we can go back to the main screen here.
All right. If you want to comment about that or join the Bradford Pear Eradication Society, you can dial 615-499-6690.
So this guy that he sent the email on about, he needs to call in and take the oath, like you made me take the oath.
No, he's one of those SOBs. I mean, you know those SOBs.
No, he's talking about the Save Our Bradfords is what he's talking about. That SOBs, not
Bunch of SOBs out there like that.
There's some that are still there is a misguided few, but they're a well organized and determined bunch.
What are they, Bradford and on?
No, that's for those who've gotten to the other side.
Okay. Okay. All righty. 615-499-6690.
That number right there. You can phone us.
Because it's easy to
You
join
can leave
the
a
Bradford
voicemail.
Yes.
You can actually can call us, and if Michael doesn't pick up, there's the phone right there.
That's the bat phone.
You can give us a call and we'll discuss. We are, I think it's about time for us to go to our good friend here. What do you say?
I think Nicholas might have dropped off after my rant.
Oh, far from it. We are extraordinarily pleased to have our dear friend back on the program, Nicholas Stadden. And Nicholas is I would say it's not too much to suggest that he is a world-renowned, not just across the continental, the 48 contiguous states of the United States, but he's a global kind of guy.
He's kind of like us.
Well, except he actually
does it. Yes. He actually does it.
We just have a set that creates the illusion that we know what we're doing. But Nicholas, welcome to the At Home Show. Great to have you back today.
Oh, David and Tyler and Josh, good to see you, chaps. Everyone looking good this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Well, despite the rugged start that the weather has given us this morning, we're holding up rather well. Point. So we're grateful to have you on board this morning and talking about the excitement I've never seen in Middle Tennessee. Last week, last Saturday, everywhere was the first day of spring, and I've never seen spring hit with that amount of force. We've never been so busy. Everyone was out. And were it not for the conditions today, I would expect it would be a repeat performance. Everyone is on pins and needles, ecstatic about the arrival of spring in 2021.
So did you know that supposedly, and I don't know where the numbers are coming from, but last year in 2020, somewhere between 16 and 20 million people took to gardening.
Yay.
In addition to all the people who are gardening already. So I think what's really exciting is that finally Americans, and I guess I might consider myself one of the family now, but finally Americans really see the value of plants. They're good for our environment. They're good for the family. They're good for the neighborhood. It's just a terrific place to be. I mean, we're in the right place at the right time with the right group of people.
Absolutely. And after having gone to Great Britain and spending a couple of weeks in England a couple of years ago, you really become, you can't help but appreciate the level of enthusiasm and how much people revere gardening, and that being a gardener, while perhaps for many years in this part of the world, it was kind of a lowly and non-esteemed position.
You grow okra?
In Great Britain, it's a very much an esteemed thing and appreciated. The level of gardening that goes on in England and Great Britain,
all across Europe, actually,
it really is inspiring to see, and it does give me hope that we are. I don't know that we'll ever catch, but we're at least are closing the gap a little bit. For our purposes here, I write this newsletter every week. Mm-hmm. In the last 12 months, we have added 7,000 subscribers to my newsletter.
Oh, my Lord.
So we went from about 17,000 to now we're up to 24,000. So it's
wow.
It's this, all that does is substantiate exactly what you're saying. There's a lot of new gardeners, but being a neophyte gardener doesn't mean that you can't have really good success.
Oh yeah.
And that's where that we hope that the professionals in the industry like ourselves can really give new gardeners hope, and they only get hope if they can be successful with it.
Yeah. But David, at the same time, part of the learning process along the way is, you are going to lose a plant or two.
Right. It's not even the best gardeners don't have 100% success.
Absolutely. But you mustn't let that dampen your enthusiasm.
Exactly.
Right? You come back to the nursery, come back to the green room on Saturday morning. You can get your questions answered. I mean, it's not a difficult process. So, the one thing, and maybe the time is right now, the one thing that we do not have in America, we do not have a national gardening event. There are some regional retail shows for consumers, etc. In Europe, England, they have the Chelsea Flower Show.
Right.
The time is right in America for a big national flower show. It could be terrific. Lots of speakers, good-looking plants, people flying in from all over America. People would come from out of the country to it. I mean, it's
well, we've had a local show here in Nashville for more than 3 decades now. This year, unfortunately, due to the complications with COVID, it did not happen this year. But they're very hopeful that the Nashville Lawn and Garden Show will again return next year. Now, they typically get. It's a more of a regional type of thing, but they typically get 25,000, 30,000 visitors to it every year. But the old facility is no more, and they're in a new facility now. So there's been some adjustments getting ready for that, and that new facility has been used to help house displaced individuals who have, for whatever reason, due to COVID or whatever their circumstances are temporarily living there. So that's part of the problem why that event didn't go on this year. They simply could not find an alternate venue. But to your point, I think it is really high time for a national event and be able perhaps to do maybe like a Super Bowl type thing where it moves from city to city and region to region.
Yeah.
Seattle, Portland area is a great spot. Certainly Southern California is a great spot. Maybe Dallas, Houston, another area. On further north in Minneapolis, Nashville obviously is a great spot because of where we're situated, and maybe somewhere further south, even Dade County down in Miami, Josh, where you used to live. So, so there's a lot of great candidates for places that could happen.
That's right. Hey, so I was going to ask you something, and I completely forgot. That's the trouble when you get a little bit older. Your memory.
I understand. Now, what were we talking about?
So, sorry, it came back to me. So, David, do you participate in your regional show when you have it?
Well, we do participate. We don't actually have a booth in it. Now, the problem that we have encountered, we did for many, many years, but it got moved a bit later where they did overlap so much into our spring, is that we simply did not have enough staff to be able to staff that and our current facility also. So it was a tough decision. Now, we supported in other ways through our soil products and donating plants for various different booths and gardens and that kind of thing.
We've always participated in helping them promote.
Right, Josh and I have broadcast from there on a number of occasions.
Well, we tried to broadcast that one time. It didn't quite work out.
So hopefully we're going to be doing that again. But yes, it is something that requires a commitment and a level of participation for it to be successful.
Well, they build gardens and fountains, and I mean, it's a tremendous amount of work for a 4-day show.
Tremendous.
Now, the Chelsea Flower Show, it goes on for several weeks, doesn't it?
It goes on for a week, but it takes about a month to set it up, and it takes about a month to take it down. And it's not just the setup and take down, the gardens that they create. All these gardens go to different cities around the United Kingdom. And then the garden that has been installed at the Chelsea Flower Show, say one of the gardens goes to Sheffield, then Sheffield will find a spot and they will reinstall the garden. And then they have to get an endowment. So people look after the garden and volunteers, it's a big thing.
So they don't simply reuse the plant material. They actually recreate that in a different location as it was in the show.
They will move everything. They'll move the plants. They'll move the bricks and the mortar and the structure. They move the whole thing.
Wow.
I mean, these British, they don't do things in a half-assed way.
No, absolutely no. It would be so wrong for that. Now, Nicholas and I have known each other for more than 2 decades. And we've gotten, you currently are give me your title with Everide which you currently are.
So I work for a terrific company called Everide Growers, and we used to be made up of 3 different nurseries, Treetown USA, Village Nurseries, and Heinz Growers. Heinz Growers, interestingly enough, is 100 years old this year.
Wow.
So lots of history with the company. So we work for a fabulous chap called Jonathan Saperstein. And anyway, Jonathan has all these 3 companies under one umbrella now called Everide Growers. We're a national company. We're probably growing on about 6,000 acres. It's a lot of fun. And so I get to work in the plant side and also public relations. I'm the spokesperson for the company and work with new plants as well, work in the marketing department, public relations, all that sort of thing. And anything else they want me to do, kind of chief cook and bottle washer. Yeah. Bit like you, David.
Yeah, well, we all do what we have to do or what we must.
That's right. Yeah.
But
what they tell us to.
You come into this position that you're in now from a background of, you were trained well. You came into the nursery industry how many years ago, Nicholas?
This year it's going to be 37 years ago.
Yeah, that is amazing, and that is the way that I got to know Nicholas. It was formerly through Monrovia, and he worked there for a lot of years. I don't know how many years, but you worked there for. Tell me the number.
27 years.
27 years, and ultimately you became the new plant introductions director, and you helped work and develop many of the new varieties that Monrovia is growing today.
Yeah.
So just talk to us a little bit about that process. How do you go about in your current position as well as the former one in finding these new plants, these plants that exhibit interesting traits that you believe that will be beneficial to gardeners?
Yeah, well, David, thank you. It's a labor of love, and the success of any new plant introduction program that a nursery has is really through the relationships you develop. And the people you work with, you'll work with plant breeders, hybridizers, people who cross plants, who develop plants. Some of these will be large companies. Some of these will be smaller companies. Some of them will be an individual. To give you an example, many of you will be familiar with a rose called the knockout rose.
Quite so, yes.
Yeah, all different colors. So that was developed by one man, called Bill Radler. And Bill only made about 40 crosses, just 40 crosses.
Just 40.
Just 40. And from those 40 crosses, they picked out the knockout rose. And that's been the same with the program, whether it's white, yellow, whatever. So, but then we work with other people who breed, thousands of different plants to make one selection. My favorite group of people to work with are plant explorers, people who travel to distant lands or who hike through the Appalachian Mountains, wherever it might be, and they identify a specific plant that has some type of unique difference, a plant that normally grows 10 or 15 feet high, and they find a dwarf selection that's 2 or 3 feet high.
Wow.
That normally has red flowers, and they find a branch on that flower that has an orange flower or a white flower, a chance mutation, and also a seedling. We've got, we have a lot of plants that are brought into the profession where a seedling selection sprouts up. The mother plant drops all its seeds, and a seedling selection comes up, and there's some type of unique difference about it. It's amazing how many gardeners identify a unique plant in their garden. They're out there weeding one day, and they just happen to notice a branch sport or a seedling that's pops up.
A little volunteer, as it were.
Yeah, or plant. You're driving down the freeway. I've actually been the recipient of some terrific plants that have been identified from freeway plantings. They plant the freeway with trees and they just leave them, and they set their seeds, and volunteers come up, right? And there's lots of unique plants that have found their way into the business from that.
Inside the larger growers, is there a success rate or a ratio that from where they start with something, they say we're going to try to do this, and then what is the success rate at the end of the line?
That's a terrific question. The success rate. So for every 100 plants you look at, you might get 2 or 3 that make the grade. It's a very low success rate.
And I have gotten to personally witness a lot of these trial growing areas where they have all these many cultivars. Hydrangeas are one of the plants over the last several years that there have been so many cultivars tried on it. These repeat bloomers, and that's kind of a theme in a lot of plants, is trying to either get repeat blooming or get more reliable blooming and increase disease and pest resistance. And that takes a long time to make those kind of determinations.
It does. So David, here, let me give you an example. So over your right shoulder, I believe there's a beautiful cherry.
Yes. No, actually, this is a flowering peach is what that is.
A flowering peach. Okay. So is that what we're looking at? Is that that's an interstem graft?
Yes, it is.
All right. So
what he means by that is that there's a low graft and then there's a high graft also. So there's a double graft on there. So yes.
Wow.
All right. So someone identified the peach that's actually on
the
top.
Right.
Right. They thought that's a beautiful looking peach. But the roots or the root system of that particular peach was a very weak root system. So what they decided to do was to find a rootstock to graft it on. And so they would have used several different rootstocks to find that ideal interstem to graft it onto. So that in itself is a new plant. And that probably would have taken somewhere along the lines of 10, 14 years to develop, to make sure the union was
compatible.
Union, kind of like a marriage,
right?
Marriages can take a long, long time. I've been married for 36 years, and
as have I.
Oh, the
Me
last
too.
2 of them relatively happily. It's taken a long time,
Yeah.
But so that's a new plant as well. Someone's figured out how to grow it. So interestingly enough, I'm not sure what the interstem graft is, but in Japan, in the big parks where they have cherries that are interstem graft, there are actually gardeners who are employed to polish the interstem. They go out there every day with the duster and they polish them. So they have that wonderful kind of bright amber color. So,
that is amazing.
Now, Tyler, that's going to be on your list next week.
Yeah, get up there and polish those interstems, Tyler.
Polisher now? Is this what I'm reduced to?
Careful.
Or elevated to? Sorry.
Okay, now let's hold the thought for just a moment, Nicholas. We're going to take a short break here. I'm going to talk about one of the things that you actually were instrumental in the early development of and helping us get the Earth Mix Garden Products line established. And several years ago, and if I click on the right thing, it will be helpful. Several years ago, really began to become disillusioned by the poor quality. I mean, it was just amazing how many bad soils there were on the market. Matter of fact, I was hard pressed to ever find something that was really acceptable, that both was productive and also affordable. And, my contention is, and I think the point that we came from was that if it doesn't grow plants with a viable growth, it doesn't have any value. And there's a whole lot of products out there on the market that really have the poor quality part covered. At Earth Mix Garden Products, we really tried to take a completely different attack in that it is a 100% organic growing medium. It is sustainably produced, and it doesn't have chemical additives to it. There are we do add mycorrhiza fungi and humic acid, which are naturally occurring things to help create soils that are naturally fertile and also able to make maximum use of the fertility that is available, not just in the soil, but out of the atmosphere itself. So you're going to find that throughout the entire line of Earth Mix Garden products, whether you select Earth Mix Garden or Proganics O or Supernatural or any of the other great products. You're going to find that throughout, and it's available all over Middle Tennessee and Kentucky. Go to earthmix.net, click on the Find Earth Mix tab, and once you're there, you'll see the map come up, and it will show the entire area here that we have the locations in, up in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and all across Tennessee, and more locations coming soon. So remember this, success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix Garden Products, and we appreciate you taking a moment and giving us a chance to discuss that.
All righty, folks, if you've got a question about what we're talking about or anything, you can dial 615-499-6690.
Now, one of the things, Nicholas, you were instrumental in developing, and there's some great stories associated with it, are the Ito peonies. Now, herbaceous peonies have been notoriously problematic. They have all manner of problems. They want to flop. They get leaf disease. They bloom sporadically. But then this Ito peony came into the marketplace, and give us some backstory on how that all happened. And we have some demonstrations that Cary here is going to show. So you call out name varieties. I think we've done our homework here. It can give you what you want to talk about, but give us a little backstory first as to how the development of Ito peonies occurred and what that has evolved into.
Oh, so David, this is a terrific story, and behind every plant, how insignificant people might think they are. Behind every plant, there's a terrific story, and it's really what captures a lot of gardeners' attention. So I was really fortunate many years ago to be involved with bringing Ito peonies to market in containers. And so the story goes way back to the war years, the Second World War. In the late 30s and 40s, there was a Japanese gentleman called, and he was hybridizing or crossing herbaceous peonies with tree peonies, and he was actually looking for a red tree peony. That's what he was looking for.
Okay.
He made several hundred crosses. And in the late 40s, he passed away. Some American herbaceous peony breeders heard about his work in Japan. And anyway, over a period of time, they made their way to Japan. They met with Mrs. Ito. They all got on very well, and Mrs. Ito gave them some of her husband's work, right? None of these plants had bloomed, none of them. So the American peony breeders, they take these crosses bring them back to America, sign all the paperwork with the USDA, etc. And it appears the peonies historically, all the breeding work and all the growing them in ground, etc., whether it was herbaceous or tree peonies, because there were tree peonies then, it had all been done in kind of the upper Midwest, etc.
Right.
In 1963, the first of these Ito crosses bloomed, and they named her, and her name was Bartzella. And David, you still carry Bartzella.
Yeah, we do. As a matter of fact, Cary has got a sample of Bartzella here on our little demonstration end, and we're going to bring Cary Gant. Oh. Good morning, Cary.
Good morning.
Hey, Terry, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you.
You as well.
Okay, now Cary, it's the plant that's directly in front of it that
here.
we're okay. So tell us what they found in addition to the first flower that occurred. What were the other qualities that attracted them to this plant that really made it stand out?
So one was the flower. The flower is stunning. There's no other way to describe it. It's a big bright yellow. Yeah, yellow is crucial to the garden. It's a very, emotionally, it's a really kind of happy color, makes you feel good to look at it. So other things they noticed on these crosses were the extremely strong stems. And maybe we can have the camera hone in on the stems of one of these plants, and we can see.
I think our close-up camera, for whatever reason, was having some difficulties this morning. But he can get pretty close on it, so maybe we can get a better shot of it.
Yeah, so you can see how strong the stems are, right? They're like the thickness of a pencil, even thicker in some cases. There you go. So as the plant develops, the plant will get bigger. So the plant that you're looking at next year will be twice the size and have twice as many stems coming up from the ground. It's really exciting. Anyone who comes into the nursery, and we might be able to see this on the Monrovia plants. If you look right down at the base, you'll see the eyes coming up from the base of the plant.
Extremely thick and sturdy.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's one of the qualities that the Ito peonies that they get from the tree peony side is their ability to grow upright without having to be staked or no growth
through guides. So on a morning like today, we're not going to be out there picking them up later this afternoon.
Right, because they're notoriously bad, the herbaceous ones, to flop. I mean, they would just, a rain like we've had today, and they are on the ground, where these really stand up nice and erect and really give you the full enjoyment of them.
They're absolutely
now, I've got on the screen here over our Bates Nursery website. You can go to batesnursery.com, and you can simply go to the search box and search in the word Ito. That's ITOH. And that'll bring you the whole list of all the Ito peonies that we have on hand currently. And you can click on each one to give you more information about that. But in addition to these really strong, erect stems that stand up through weather and heat and all of the other extremes, they also have a tremendous amount of disease resistance. Leaf spot issues, particularly here in the South where we have high humidity, has plagued peony people who are proponents of it for years, because it just requires all this spraying that you hate to have to do to be able to keep something going and keep it looking good. These really do extraordinarily well without having to be sprayed.
Well, so you've got high disease resistance. When people started, there were people who were creating other types of Itos, etc. But the only way that you could purchase an Ito was by a tuber, right? So, and if you could get hold of Bartzella back in the 60s or 70s, you would pay in excess of $1,000 for a small tuber.
Ooh.
I mean, it was just so. In the nursery business, people love those prices.
Oh yeah,
especially in $60.
Terrific amount of time and work. So So listeners, gardeners, if you go on David's site, the really the top ones, the new ones, they're over $100. Do not let that put you off, because it is extraordinary value for money. These plants they're going to outlive all of us. So Ito peonies, we believe, will live between 80 and 120 years old. The production method or creation method on the a lot of the Itos that David carries, and the three I'm going to talk about, which are we've got Bartzella, we've got Takara, and we've got Yumi. These plants and many of the other varieties David carries are created by an extraordinary expensive process called tissue culture.
Boy, that's an amazing. Yes, but please go into that. I want to hear about the tissue culture process that's been taken to develop these.
Well, very, very basically, the plants are created in a laboratory in a very sterile place. The buds, a bud from a flower is taken, and the bud is cut into 3 or 4 pieces, and then it is placed into a translucent medium. It's like a soil, only it's a specially man-made.
Soylent Green?
A man-made soil, right? But it's not soil. It's like
vitro. It's a gelatinous.
There we go. Perfect. And then the plant, that piece of a bud, living in this in vitro process, it actually creates a brand new plant. So how tissue culture works is, so from the bud, it creates a brand new plant, and then 3 to 4 weeks later, the jar is opened, it's in a sealed container, that plant is removed, and then in turn, it is chopped up into 1 or 2 or 3 plants, and then it's replanted back into a new medium, and from there, a brand new plant grows. So the failure rate is extraordinary.
I imagine.
There's a lot of time and effort and huge expense that goes into this. So all joking aside, what they're being sold for is really, it's not a lot of money.
No, it's not. And one of the things that I think is worth mentioning to our viewers this morning is that when they go into bloom, and we'll have many hundreds of them, when they go into bloom, they disappear instantly. I mean, I don't mean disappear. I mean, people pick them up and they load them on their carts full and they're out of here. So a word to the wise gardener is your selection for whatever color or cultivar that you're interested in is expansive right now. And I assure you, you will not be disappointed in the quality of what comes out of it. All are tagged with the information that gives you an excellent representation. There are a lot of plants, Nicholas, I have found that get to market that are not that are underwhelming. But the Ito peonies are the clear exception to that. They are splendid, and if they have negative attributes, I have yet to discover them.
Well, question back. You would assume that these are all full sun plants, or are they?
They are full sun. They can handle some shade, though.
Really?
Yep.
So Josh, that's a fantastic question. So I've seen them grow in full sun. I've also seen them do extremely well in dappled shade. Sorry, excuse me, I got a frog there. I've seen them do very well in dappled shade. But do you know what? So viewers at home, so if you've got a pencil and a bit of paper there, and I can repeat this again. So the names on these are extremely important.
And we're going to cut over to Cary while you're naming those off, so she can actually show you what the plants look like. So what do you have there, Cary? Which one do you have up?
We've got the Takara right in front of me right here.
Okay.
And then the Yumi on my right.
So Takara, it's a Japanese name, means treasure. And it's a beautiful single lavender pink. Now, we haven't mentioned this, that
just look at the structure of that plant. It is incredible.
It's a pretty plant without the blooms on it.
It's great. So can you... now that's it. Okay. Sorry, is it Cary or Terry?
Cary. Yeah, tip
Cary,
that back
sorry.
again, Cary, so we can see those stems again. Tip it
Or
back.
Vanna.
There you go. There you go. So
Yeah.
I like
So-
Vanna.
So now this is really important. What you're looking at now is the tree peony blood. Okay. So those stems you're looking at will actually turn to wood. So that's the tree peony side. And let's talk about the pruning, because this is absolutely crucial for a successful plant. So we're looking at a fairly young plant here. All the plants that David gets in from Monrovia, they are actually 3 years old. An Ito peony needs to be about 3 years old before it flowers. So what's going to happen over the course of the season, some of those stems are going to turn to wood. So this is very important when it comes to pruning. Do not be tempted at the end of the season to go in and cut them back. Leave them be. And what I've always done when I've worked with Itos or with people who work with Itos, I leave them exactly as they are right the way through the winter months. Don't cut them back. And so early spring, before the plant starts pushing and growing, you go to the base and you look up the stem, up. And let's say this plant, probably about 6 to 7 inches of the stem will have turned to wood over the winter months.
Right.
Then you go up another maybe couple of inches or 3 inches, and that's where you will prune the plant, because it's going to die back about a half inch, maybe an inch.
Right.
And then what happens is when spring breaks and the ground gets to 55, 60 degrees, you will actually see buds that break from the wood, right? And you'll see eyes, they're called eyes that start coming out from the ground. So over a period of time, with careful pruning, your Ito peony will end up to be somewhere between 3 and 4 feet high.
Wow.
And probably a plant that could be, I don't know, I've seen them actually a couple of feet across. I mean, they really get to be a magnificent size. So I just made a list here. So bear with me, because I don't want so you've got these really magnificent blooms. The other thing that the first group of peony guys who, when they got these Ito peonies and they bloom, they have secondary buds. So they have 2 groups of flowers. You've got your big, some of the flowers are up to 9 inches across. When it takes an Ito peony a couple of 3 years to really settle in and do its stuff.
So they got to develop enough root system and get established well enough to be able to have the energy to be able to produce those massive.
So this is not a container plant.
Well, I mean, it is a container plant, but once it gets established in the garden is when it's able to draw on the resources of the soil that it's growing.
Well, I know it's a container grown plant, but I mean, this is probably not one that you would have to be big.
Actually, you could.
Container.
You could.
Wow.
So here's the deal. If you want to buy an Ito and you are thinking about moving, put it in a container, right? Buy a nice, David, I'm sure, has got lots of terrific
And
containers.
bury it, yes.
When you move house, you take that Ito with you, unless you want to add another several $100s on the house,
right,
and sell it to the new owner, right?
Yeah.
But so they do make a great container plant.
Huh.
But we've got these secondary buds. So when the plant will bloom, and you've got a big flower on top of the end of the branch, and then if you look down into the foliage, you'll see branches coming up from the stems that have a secondary bud on them. And the secondary buds are probably about 30% smaller than the main flower. But in the right season, you can probably get 6-7 weeks of blooms out of these plants. I mean, it's absolutely unique. Some of them are fragrant, some of them are not. Just depends on the variety. Some of them, it tends to be a heavier type fragrance. So it can be, it's not a sweet, light fragrance. It tends to be more of a heavier fragrance.
And here I've got this Takara up on the screen. Now, I don't think the color translates well here, but it does give you an idea of what a massive, gorgeous flower they are. And again, it sounds like a sales pitch, and I know it does, to say, well, you need to get out and buy those now. they simply won't be here once they get in bloom. I mean, they will be here hours once they go in bloom, and they're the most consistent selling item once it's in flower I've ever seen. We can have hundreds of them, and I hear people often say, "Oh, I'll come back and get one tomorrow," and tomorrow comes and they're gone. So
They're gone.
Now, Nicholas and David, now, again, we all know that an ant can't move a rubber tree plant. Are the Itos as attractive to ants as the regular herbaceous peonies are?
I don't know.
We call them ant plants. I mean, that's what.
I mean, ants do tend to
because the nectar on them is really thick, and they like that stuff, don't they?
Well, I have no reason to believe that they won't like those as well, but they don't. They're not a detractant. You know, that's just that's part of the what you can enjoy.
Charm?
Yeah, it's part of the charm of them that they attract other colonies. But
It's part of the ecosystem, right?
exactly right. Exactly right.
Part of the ecosystem. So bear with me here. There's always been, and no pun intended, David, there has always been a big debate over whether you can transplant Ito peonies or not, or tree peonies. And I've spoken to several people who've said, yes, you can transplant them, and they've done it successfully. Or no, once you get a tree peony in the ground and it's kind of happy where it is, you cannot transplant it. What is your take on this debate?
My take is that if you want to be on the safe side, do precisely what you suggested before. Get a way oversized container, a 15 or a 20-gallon container, bury that into the ground, fill that with your growing mix, and plant into that. That way, if you decided you wanted to remove it from the ground, there's no transplant shock when you don't cut roots, and you put a big enough root ball on it that it will survive easily. So that's the surest way. Now, there are a lot of plants that are very touchy about being transplanted. Pyracantha, for one thing, they are excellent container plant, but they are terrible if you try to dig one up and move it. Even Southern Magnolia, even though they're grown a lot as a field-grown item, they are terrible about defoliating and having a high rate of loss. So I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that you will have and could have some issues trying to transplant one, but there are ways to mitigate that if you think a little bit ahead.
Yeah. So, and that's really, the whole thing about planning. So that, today, you see this magnificent magnolia behind me?
And what cultivar is that one?
That's Alexandrina.
Alexandrina, okay.
Do you sell deciduous magnolias?
Oh, we do. Oh, yes, quite a lot, and we've got a number of cultivars right now.
Yeah. So I'm actually I'm in the garden this morning. So this is the plant behind me.
Right.
If you believe that, you'll believe anything.
We got some oceanfront property out in Nevada.
That would be nice. So, this particular plant, Alexandrina, is still sold in the trade, and it was actually the first plants were brought to market in 1887.
Wow.
And so here we are still today. Nurseries are still selling this beautiful plant. It's just great. So actually, it's just the sun is just coming up, peeking through the window. Early out here in California, but so planning is a real key part of the success of your garden. My garden is a disaster, and I'm embarrassed. People say, "Oh, we need to come and look at your garden."
He said, "No, you don't."
No, you don't. So I won't let anyone near it because it's I have a hole, something dies, and I put a plant in it, or I need to put another plant in for trialing and evaluation. I'll dig somebody up.
What's been one of the more difficult and more challenged gardening areas in the country simply because of this extreme drought and the water conservation measures, and then fires, and then flooding, and I mean it's quite a quandary to know exactly what to do and how to approach it.
Well, it's so agreed, but on the other side. David, the soil the earth mix that you've created we can take a very inhospitable area, and with the right soil additives and additions, and I'm a real big believer in organic soils. And the reason why an organic soil is alive, right, and it will give back to the plant. So many of the soils that I've worked with out here in California, I'll tear open a bag. The ingredients, they haven't been composted correctly. They're fairly fresh, and what they'll do.
They're absolutely sterile. They have no living microorganisms in it at all. There was a time not so many years ago where saying a soil was sterile was considered to be a good thing, and now we know that that's not the way Mother Nature operates.
That's why pasteurization, which is what a lot of people do. Monrovia does that with their soils; they pasteurize it. So there's still life in the soil.
Right. You get rid of the bad stuff, but you don't compromise the soil, its overall structure. Up on the screen behind me here, Nick, I also have some of the cultivars of the Deciduous Magnolias. We've got Black Tulip and Vulcan. We also have Jane down there in the bottom. And I think we have, there's a Cuminata, that Elizabeth, that yellow, the Primrose Yellow. So, there are some great cultivars available if you are so interested. They really I love that combination of the yellow with the Black Tulip. Those are really a striking combination.
Yeah. Black Tulip's cool. Hey, so really quickly, just going back to the Itos. So the other two flavors we have up there. So we spoke about Takara. Listeners, when you look at the flowers on these, they have these big anthers, big golden anthers in the middle of the flower.
Right.
They have these extraordinary red flares, and the red flares come out from the anthers and start creeping up the petals. So it's fantastic.
But they present themselves so well, they really draw you in for a closer examination when the flowers are wide open. And that's really what you're describing is the structure of the flower itself. It's more than just this overall color. It has a lot of interest in it, in the flower and within it.
So David, pan the camera to Cary's right, please.
Okay.
So that is that our left? There we are. Right. Now, all right. Okay, hang on. Look. Okay, can the camera go up a little bit? Okay, stop there. Look at the buds.
They are loaded. They're loaded
with buds. So when I speak about the secondary buds, so you'll have the flower on top of the plant. Look at that. Thank you. And then you go down into the foliage, and that's where you see these secondary buds coming along.
Right.
There's no other group of plants that does this in my book. So Cary, the plant. What's the plant we're looking at?
Right here in front of me. This is the Yumi.
Yumi. Okay.
Okay. So Yumi means abundant beauty. So these names were chosen by a lady who I worked with called Lillian Dixon. And Lillian was a lady of Asian descent. So we said we want to have names that are easy to pronounce. We want to have names that immortalize the country where the plants came from. So she chose, Takara means treasure, Yumi means abundant beauty, and Misaka, which I think is Misaka means beautiful blossom. And Misaka is a semi-double with a real cool kind of peach and yellow colored flowers. So the other thing about these plants is, we've all got people that, we want to buy, whether it's someone we live with, our partner or our spouse or, a close friend. These make unbelievable gifts to give. You are giving something, a piece of horticultural history. It's absolutely amazing. So I tell you what, let's say the middle one, Cary, do you think, can we tilt it towards, that one would be good. Can we tilt it towards the camera? Absolutely. And can you put your hand around the front and pull the foliage back towards you? And can we see any eyes coming up from the soil?
I don't see any from here, but
I've actually got one right over here. Let me just switch it out.
the eyes are like these beautiful little kind of red spears, and these are new
Little babies.
Little babies.
little
that's
babies
right.
coming up. Yeah, I
There's
can't
a
see
little
them.
going on. Let's see.
Yeah, but so like next year and the year after, so you've got your crown. All these little spears, which are pink and red in color, will come up from the ground, and there'll be like 15, 20, 25 of them on a really healthy plant. On mulching, these are vigorous plants, and that's because of the tissue culture process. These are vigorous plants. So, using David's earth mix, he'll tell you which is the right one to use. It's really crucial to mulch the plant. There's lots of fertilizers David sells that he can recommend to you. But certainly, I always do a mulch at the end of the year and a mulch early in the beginning of spring. Don't place them too far up the ground, but the earth mix being organic and alive, it will feed the soil, and it will dissipate over a year. It will actually go from the top of the soil down into the soil. So, killer plants.
Well, Nicholas, this has been great having you on again today. I mean, as always, and the time has flown by. We've reached the top of the hour, and we want to thank you, and of course, the great folks at Everde Growers for having you and being astute enough to recognize the jewel of information that you are. And Nicholas, we thank you for being on here this morning.
Please.
We look forward to having you again soon.
Thank you.
All righty.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Nicholas. Hey, that music means we're done, man.
Yeah, come out and see us at Bates Nursery today, by the way. We are open until 4 o'clock.
Lots of stuff is
weather
undercover.
permitting. We got a lot of stuff undercover. Come out and see us, including all the Ito peonies that we've talked about today.
Peonies.
And a host of other things. So put your rain gear on. You might need it today.
And be careful on the way up. Watch out for the wall monster on Interstate 24. It's out there to get you. Slow down, folks,
Yep.
so you can join us here next Saturday morning for the At Home Show. For everybody here from the Green Room, we thank you.